who are starving in Africa, it does.
You're not called to help. I mean, Christians aren't called to help all the people starving in Africa.
Oh, it's only the neighbors close by.
No. I'm just saying there's reasonable things. You can't right all the wrongs in the world. It's physically
Well, I'm
possible.
just wondering,
You do what you
guys
can.
started on this one, whether there was a right or wrong.
There is a
So
right or
if
wrong.
it's, you're saying it's a moral obligation to help the person next to you, but not the one 5,000 miles away, so.
Well, your neighbor doesn't mean somebody next to you in that context. It means everybody. Yes.
It means even the people in
Right, but
Africa.
you have a limited ability to do
But
that and
now you're
maintain the other
denying that,
responsibilities.
but now you're saying it's not immoral to spend your money on frivolous things when you could use it to save the neighbors 10,000 miles away.
Everyone's in a different place anyway.
It's not-
So the Lord speaks
You're
to each
really attaching something to Christianity that's not there.
No, I'm attacking what you're saying, not Christianity. Yes.
Okay, I'll give you an example. Jesus Christ told us a parable about the talents. You remember that one, or do anybody remember that one? Okay.
Tower of Babel.
Okay, he said the kingdom of heaven is like a man who was very rich, and he had 3 servants. He gave one servant 10 talents, which was a lot of money back in those days. He gave another servant 5 talents, and he gave another servant 1 talent. He told his instructions as he was leaving, he was going away. His instructions were, take care of this and make it work, or whatever, something like that. Okay. When he came back, the guy who had 10 talents had made it 20 talents by trading and doing things business-wise. He gave whatever, the guy, the head of the mansion, the 20 talents. The guy had 5, just like it, made 5 more. He asked the guy who got 1 talent, what'd you do? I went and buried it in the ground secretly so nobody would ever get it. Now here it is. He goes, you are a wicked servant. Take that talent, and give it to the one with 10. Now, what was that lesson about? I can interpret it for you.
There are so many inconsistencies and different principles in the Bible that I'm not going to try to attack or defend them.
That's
I'm
because
talking
you
about
really
what you said.
haven't studied
What
the
you were
Bible,
saying,
Bill.
we're talking about an absolute morality. Forget Christianity. You're talking about there has to exist an absolute
Yeah.
morality.
And it's
And so
attached to,
that means,
in my view, it's
that
attached
means
to
any
Christianity.
action- That means that any action you take is either absolutely right or
Wrong.
absolutely wrong.
wrong. That's illogical.
No, okay, then there isn't some
I'm
absolute
just
morality.
Spock. I'm telling you it's illogical. It's not logical to say it's absolutely right or wrong. I'm saying a lot of things are neutral.
Oh, okay. Well, it sounded to me like you were saying there is a moral law in the universe that we have to operate by, and that evolution does not require that. But there is a moral
No, I didn't
law.
say it required. Evolution doesn't have anything to say about it. Evolution is just random stuff happening. It's not, it has no ability, it has no ability to address right and wrong. It's just there.
Societal
But your
evolution
principle,
does.
your point was that there is a right or
There
wrong.
is. I'm not saying there's nothing in the middle. I mean, why would you say just because there's a right and a wrong doesn't mean that everything's right or wrong? That's illogical.
Jerry, right and wrong, right, there
But
is,
then you have something to say.
there is a
I'm
right,
going to do it this way.
there is a right and there is a wrong, but there are circumstances. Within them circumstances, you make a decision based on your morality, based on what your ideology, based on what your theology is. For example, if we're in a boat and there's somebody who's mentally disturbed in their boat, and there's 7 or 8 people in there, and there's just so much food in there, and I take that person and I do away with him, I murder him, I kill him, I throw him overboard, for the sake of the other people that are in there. Is that right or is that wrong? Well, under normal circumstances, if there was plenty of food and this guy was fine and there was no problem, then it would have been wrong for me to murder him. But under the circumstances, you make a determination based on the situation that you're in. Now, what God does in the Bible is He lays out morality, and in the different circumstances that we are in, we make the decision based on the situation that we're in at the time. And there is right or wrong, and sometimes it could be right, and sometimes it could be wrong, based on the situation you're in at the time.
So there are no absolutes.
There is
Well,
absolute.
certainly are. Of course there are absolutes.
There is absolutes, but the absolute is determined by the situation that you're in. There's things morally that you could do at certain times that are right. And then there's things that are wrong, they appear to be wrong, but they're not wrong.
Moving on, thank you. Okay, the biblical principle here about morality is that God is righteous and unchangeable. His moral laws, like his physical laws for the universe, do not change. The entirety of God's moral laws can be summed up in 2 commandments. Love God and love your fellow humans. And that's a real brief quotation, or what do you call it? Yeah, but you understand, that's what Jesus said about the commandments. Yes, sir?
Yeah, Jerry, before you go on, let's go to the pink part there.
Yeah.
And before I say anything, let me say I'm personally involved, okay?
Mhm.
I have a grandson and a granddaughter who's only about 4 years old now. And then they got type 1 diabetes,
Yeah.
and they're having the shots and all this, okay.
Okay.
So I have a personal involvement with this. Now, any behavior that fosters the survival and reproduction of the individual, but the best genetic makeup is evolutionary selected. Now, before insulin, people with diabetes would die.
Right.
Okay. When I had a genetics course way back, the professor brought up one point, and he said, getting back to survival of the fittest, that say if there was a nuclear holocaust, and it was terrible, and people could no longer get insulin, what would happen to the people with diabetes? They would die. If they all died out and couldn't pass on that genetic code, there'd be no more diabetes. So you're getting back to survival of the fittest then.
Mhm.
The fittest.
Yeah, there are
who didn't have
situations.
diabetes would survive.
Right.
Okay, so any behavior that fosters the survival and reproduction of the individual with the best genetic makeup is evolutionary selected. Is that true?
It's
Before
not,
insulin-
it is not true, no, because I don't believe that, okay? But what I'm saying is, in the world of evolutionary principles, it's true. It follows. Human beings don't live by that. That's not how human beings live. What I'm saying is that, I'll tell you a story. It's no big deal. It's about myself and it makes me look, I don't know if it makes me look stupid or what, but we were down dining at Sumter Landing, and I was sitting there with my wife having dinner, and there was this lady there who had 2 young daughters. They're probably about 6 and 4. I don't know. I think that's how they were. And she was texting on her phone, and they had finished eating, and the kids were running up and down the what was it?
Boardwalk.
Yeah, boardwalk. And there's a rail there. It's a metal rail. It's got 2 round ones, one here and one there. Great big gaps in it. And they're running, bumping into each other, bumping into the rails. And I'm looking at that, and I said, good Lord, those kids, and it's like 15 feet, it was at Cody's, or 10 feet down to the water, and there's alligators in the water, whatever, I don't know if the kids could swim or not. I took my watch off, my rings off, my wallet out of my pocket. I thought I was going to go in and have to save somebody. Now, that would put my life at risk. But that was my instinct, okay? Humans don't live by natural selection because we're civilized, and we've learned it, okay? But you're right. If something happened that made us uncivilized, like a nuclear holocaust or a shortage of food or something like that, we would probably turn into survival of the fittest to a certain extent because our instincts would kick in. Instincts call survival of the fittest. I agree with that.
Is that good or bad though?
It's just true. I'm not saying it's good. I mean, survival of the fittest is not good. No, not for human behavior. It is the case in animal behavior.
It's good if you're the one who's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's good for you. It's not, doesn't make it good or wrong morally. It's good for you if you're the big man on the campus or whatever. All right. I'm not saying survival of the fittest isn't true. It is true in the world. Humans have risen above that. And if you follow the biblical record, it was always that way, human-wise. Oh, there's a lot of bad stuff that happened in history. We'll talk about that too. Anyway, what it says is, evolutionary principle is, we're just a bunch of chemicals that somehow got together and became organized, and have a computer program in us, and we make up our own rules, and I guess what Harry was saying is you make the rules up to be consistent with your culture, society that you're in. That's how you live in that society, I agree. But